Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. First of all, if you're new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day. So if you're looking for some reading inspiration, you want to know what I'm reading, you just like following book reviews, then feel free to stick around. Now let's talk about today's book. Today we are going to be reviewing volume 12 in the series that I'm reading. No matter how I look at it, it's you guys' fault I'm not popular by Nico Tanigawa. So this is what the cover looks like, and I am going to assume that you do not care if I talk about things that happened previously in the series in a video on volume 12, so I am going to kind of recap and in the process maybe spoil some stuff that happens in previous volumes. So as I've mentioned, we're on volume 12, so to recap the series up to this point, we are following Tomoko. She's here. She is a high school girl who came into high school thinking that she was going to rock this. She had played a lot of video games for the protagonist as a high school girl, and she always got the cute guys. Things were going great. She was having a fun, bubbly, socially exciting high school career in the video games. When she gets to high school, things are a little bit different, and that's where reality starts to sink in like a bucket of cold water poured in over her head. Tomoko is a little bit different. She is very lonely. She sometimes says and does things that are socially awkward, or she puts her foot in her mouth, or sometimes she's also just a little bit mean to other people. And as a result, she's kind of lonely and isolated. She's outside the class, and this is a time when a lot of people want to belong. In their teenage years, they want to belong to a group. They want to have a good time hanging out with their friends. And that's all Tomoko wants, but due to mostly her personality and just not having the confidence to talk to anyone, and when she does have the ability to talk to someone, putting her foot in her mouth, and just having a lot of social anxiety as well as what appears to be a smattering of depression, she's found herself outside of the main social groups, at least in the beginning of this series. Now Tomoko, and this is the reason I like this series, Tomoko has been growing. She has been growing very incrementally, but she has been growing. This is the kind of series that I would classify the results or the outcome of the series as being very much a slow burn. So this is not romance, at least so far. Romance hasn't really featured heavily as much as Tomoko would like romance to feature heavily. Romance has not featured in Tomoko's life so far in high school. But the slow burn comes in the way that Tomoko has slowly grown as a person. So at the very beginning, the first 4 and 5 volumes are very, very hard to read. Tomoko is isolated, she's incredibly lonely, and instead of doing something about the loneliness, instead of realizing that all of her classmates in the first year of high school are in the same boat she is, they're in a new school, they're in a new environment, and that people want to connect with other people, that she can reach out, that she can make friends, instead of doing something, she kind of retreats inward and starts the cycle of seeing things that she likes in other people or happening around her, deciding it's stupid to protect herself from feeling hurt when she's inevitably not included or not invited, and also kind of relieves her of the burden of having to go ask to join or put herself out of her comfort zone in talking to someone, then pretending that she hates all this stuff. She doesn't get involved with anybody or make connections with anyone, making it even harder the next time something comes up. We started this cycle that became very hard for Tomoko to break and left her on the outside of her classmates for quite a while. One of the teachers, a homeroom teacher who also kind of sometimes is a little overbearing, kind of realized that Tomoko was stuck in this cycle and, for better or for worse, kind of pushed her out of her comfort zone during a class trip. Since that class trip, Tomoko has definitely been growing. That class trip kind of broke this cycle that Tomoko had put herself in and allowed her to make some connections with other people. And it's like a rolling snowball down a hill. Like, all you need is a little bit to get things started, and things will quickly accumulate and start to add one on top of the other. So the connections that she makes in one volume kind of carry over to more connections in the other volume, but it's not fast. It's not instantaneous. It's not like one volume Tomoko was a social outcast and then everyone discovered Tomoko was great and now she's on the inn. Now she hangs out with people. Now she has a ton of friends. Now she's going to sleepovers every other weekend. Like, that's not how this happened. This is a slow burn because Tomoko has had to grow slowly as a person. But I think because we've had this slow burn, this slow growth, it's more realistic, first of all. And second of all, the payoff is greater. When we see Tomoko's walls coming down, particularly in the last volume, in volume 11, when she started to open up, when all these connections have kind of accumulated and Tomoko realizes, I'm not going back to the way it was. I don't want to go back to the way it was. I don't want to be eating lunch alone. I don't want to be making no memories, no connections with everyone. I want to be involved with my classmates and their lives. That represented a moment of huge growth for Tomoko, and the payoff, like, as a reader, is much more enjoyable because we've seen how far Tomoko has come from the first couple volumes. That being said, I definitely understand why people don't like this series. I think getting through the first couple volumes can be a slog, and I definitely understand people who do not want to go through all that to get a very slow incremental amount of payoff in the later volumes as Tomoko grows as a person. Definitely understand why people wouldn't like this series. Sometimes I read series and manga series and I think, oh, everyone would love this. But sometimes I read series and I think, yeah, not everyone would love this. This is definitely something that I can see why people wouldn't like. And that's where this series falls in. I personally love this series, but I understand why people wouldn't like this series. Volume 12 is kind of another one of these, like, I won't say time shift because time isn't shifting, but we're moving into a new phase. So volume 12 is graduation. So the third years are graduating and Tomoko is moving in from second year to third year. So a new class, a new group of people, but just the growth we've seen from like the beginning of first year to now the end of second year and going into third year is massive. She has these connections. She's growing as a person. And yeah, this may not be exactly how she envisioned things were going or would go when she was like in 8th grade going into, or 8th grade, whatever her middle school equivalent is, going into high school, then at the very least, things have gone in a positive direction for Tomoko and she's getting that personal growth that I think she needs. For example, in this series, we have a moment where there's an end of year party, a class party, and Tomoko actually goes. And as a reader, we can see her barriers kind of come down, that social anxiety kind of ease up a little bit, and she's kind of able to make some genuine connections with other people. Normally when Tomoko talks, and now I may not be able to find an example because she's doing it less and less, there's this like font, I guess is the only way I can describe it, that they use that is like kind of shaky and weak. Like it represents, I feel like it kind of shows the tone. If you've read the series, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It kind of shows her fear and that she's super awkward and she's stumbling over her words. You can almost envision what she looks like. You can feel like the sweat, the nervousness every time that things are kind of written in this font, for lack of a better term. But she's at this party, and for one of the first times that I can remember in this series where she's not either talking to a very close friend, but even when she's talking to a very close friend, she has that awkward moment, or like a family member, she kind of, the author drops using that font. So she's actually just talking normally. And this is a very small moment, but I feel like that's something that she definitely couldn't have done a year ago. And that just is another moment, just the fact that she went to the party, she's connecting with the people. Even when she leaves the party, she leaves with a large group of people. And she's starting to realize, I called volume 11 in my review, the volume where Tomoko realizes she doesn't want to go back to the way things were. Volume 12 is where some of that continues over, and she really sees that she doesn't want to go back to the way things are. She heard the third years in their address when they left, where they graduated, to remind them to make memories of this time when they were in school, and Tomoko realizes that she wants these connections. People are realizing as they go into their last year of high school that this is going to be their last year together. So if they want to make friends and memories with people, if they want to have those connections that have a chance of surviving later in life or just having good memories to look back on, they need to do things now. So I feel like that not only incentivizes her classmates who have started connecting with her to connect with her more, like they do after the class party when they all go home together, but also it kind of also motivates Tomoko to continue growing. So I feel like all of this is good. I feel like there's not like a ton that happens in volume 12. It kind of is just shifting from second year into third year and seeing the continuation of third year from there. There's a couple things I wanted to note. First, well, one more thing about the review of the book. People admire Tomoko for sticking to what she likes, for being honest and open about what she likes. And that's something that other people in the group, when we see their internal monologue, struggle with. There's a girl who wants to be a voice actor, but she doesn't want to say that out loud because she's worried about how other people think. Tomoko is definitely does things that are embarrassing, definitely does things that are socially a little off, definitely puts her foot in her mouth, definitely sometimes is a little mean, which are all things that she should work on and does work on and continues to work on. But one area that you can't say anything about Tomoko is Tomoko doesn't hold back. She doesn't intentionally or for very long pretend to be something she's not to try to gain friends. She definitely just kind of has stayed in her own lane, liking what she likes, even when no one else gets it. And other people admire her for it. Like the girl who's going to be a voice actor realized that, like, so she was keeping that to herself because she was worried about what other people would think. Tomoko doesn't always worry what other people are going to think about her, which sometimes is to her detriment, but some people see that as very positive or inspiring, or at least a character trait that they wish they had more of. It's everything in moderation, right? You need to have a little bit of concern and courtesy for other people and their feelings and not be intentionally humiliating them, Tomoko. And also, you know, just not being abrasive in a social situation. However, on the flip side, you shouldn't be so like permissive that you're not willing to reveal your true self because you worry more about what other people are going to think about you. So you're not going to talk about your real hobbies or the real things that you like. And that's, I feel like, a positive trait Tomoko has, that she doesn't realize it, or that sometimes gets expressed in a negative way, that is starting to be expressed in a positive way now that she has these connections with friends. Something I did want to note was on page 8, there's a super relatable comment where Tomoko is trying to remember something that happened in middle school, and she says, why are all my middle school memories the kind that make my body burn? Which is an incredibly relatable statement. If you did anything embarrassing in middle school, which if you didn't do anything embarrassing in middle school, I don't think this series is going to be relatable for you. But if you're like 99% of the population that did something embarrassing in middle school, yeah, you're going to relate to that comment. So I feel like Tomoko has this little relatable moment where she's like, oh, middle school was so embarrassing. And I feel like most people in the world would think back to like things they did when they were like between 11 and 13 and be like, wow, some of that was pretty embarrassing, and is the kind of memories that would definitely, as Tomoko puts it, make my body burn. Just embarrassing things to remember. I like volume 12. Again, I think it's a shift from second year to third year, so it's a kind of volume that's just kind of in that shift, but I think Tomoko's growing. I think she's improved as a person. I think that third year is going to be the best and brightest yet. I think this positive trajectory is going to continue, and I'm excited to see where she goes with this. I really enjoyed getting to follow Tomoko through first year and second year, and now we're going into third year. We're reaching the end of the part that I read in this series back in 2021. I don't actually remember a whole lot of what happens after like volume 12, although I do know I read past volume 12. So we're getting into territory that I don't quite remember, and I'm excited to keep reading this series and see where it goes. If you have any comments on this series, if you have any questions, if you have things that you think, series you think I should read that I'm not reading, I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear your comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.